are coast to coast. We're on Rock Music Hub today. Get a hold of us online at rockmusichub.com. And we are going to go to our next guest here on our big program. They're going to join us live. And we will go to Skype. And we are going to go to this Skype call here. We're going to get Ruma Steen Hansen in here. We got our next guest, I believe, joining us today here on Skype. How are you, my friend? We cannot hear you. We've got a visual. I can see you guys, but we cannot hear you. So I'm not sure what we need to do to get that situation rectified. I'm getting a text here. I think I've got a... not sure what... Let me see what I can do on my end here. It might be just as simple as hitting a button, because I've had that happen to me in the past. Okay. Well, I guess we'll go to our next guest. We'll go to David Pattillo. This guy.
Hello.
David, can you hear us, my friend? How are you?
Yeah, how you doing, man?
Pretty good, actually. Our last guest, I'm not sure what happened there. They had some audio technical issues, but we have got a great guest with us today. So, David, tell us a little bit about yourself, my friend.
I don't know. What do you want to know?
Well,
I'm a New York City, kind of alt blues guy.
Okay,
blues rock guy.
let's start there. How did you get involved in the blues, my friend? We'll start there.
Man, it's a long story. I mean, I think the first experience was seeing the Midnight Movie and Jimmy Page playing Since I've Been Loving You. And that kind of hooked me, and watching Song Remains the Same, the Midnight Movie. From there, it just kind of like crept into my life, and then in like sometime like about maybe probably in the 90s or something, I happened upon a video called "The Blues According to Lightnin' Hopkins," which is directed by a guy that's amazing, and I got introduced to Lightnin' Hopkins through that. And that was it. That was kind of the end of it for me. It's basically him on on his acoustic, playing like stomping in the dirt with Mance Lipscomb playing harp, and it's just incredible, because it's the visceral aspect of the blues that you really discover from it. And a guy named Les Blank was the filmmaker. I don't know if you know of his films, but he did a really cool film called A Poem as a Naked Person on Leon Russell as well. So Lightnin' Hopkins got me in, and then of course, like from there it was like, I had already discovered Dylan and Leadbelly and stuff like that, and of course moving to New York City, when I moved here, I discovered Bob Dylan, because I was blown away walking through the Village that there were so many people and everybody was getting along,
Fantastic.
So that was kind of my introduction to folk music, and then I really got into Bob Dylan from that, and then I think I got into Leadbelly through listening to Bob, and then kind of like got introduced to blues through that, and kind of the Mississippi blues stuff. But I grew up on a lot of rock and roll. Like I grew up on Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, but probably one of, Neil Young, but one of the strongest influences in my life as a kid growing up was David Bowie. So I've always loved funk and soul and groove-oriented music. And of course, when I was a little kid, it was like, you know, everybody was going to the disco, and I was too young, So the idea of that, like the disco music was, there were moments of disco music that was super cool to me. So yeah, it kind of, I say it's a blues, the new, Strange Majik and the Righteous Wrongs is a blues record, but it's a progressive blues. It's alternative blues, for lack of a better term. I don't know. They don't have a genre for it yet, I guess.
So, with you doing all the various things that you've been involved in, tell us about where we get Strange Majik. Tell us a little about this.
Well, I've been a producer for a long time. I mean, I've worked with a lot of. I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of major artists as a sort of sound engineer, mixer, and an audio producer on a show called Live at the Artist End, which is on PBS.
Yep.
And so I got to work with everybody from like Norah Jones to Robert Plant to the Alabama Shakes, and discovering songwriters in their like natural element, even like people like KT Tunstall, who was great.
Yep.
Amy Mann, and you'd really kind of people like Dierks Bentley, and you'd understand after working on these shows. So I would record and mix these shows and make them sound like a record as much as I could. And if you happen to upon any of those series, you'll hear that they do sound pretty good. And
oh yeah.
So spent a lot of time on it. Really took a lot of time with it. So I remember seeing Norah Jones on the street after we had done the work, and I'm like, hey, how you doing? She's like, great. She's like, I said, so what did you think about the Artist End thing? And she's like, I look so sweaty. And I said, no. What do you think about the way it sounded? She's like, oh, it sounded amazing, but I look so sweaty. So it's always that, the two-pronged sword, the two-pronged thing. But so I got into doing a lot of production. I produced an artist for Linda Perry on Custard Records Universal. Linda Perry from Four Non Blondes.
Yep.
And Pink and Christina Aguilera, production and songwriting. And I got to write with her, which was amazing. And and then the record came out, and then the record company kind of fumbled it, and I just got really frustrated. I said, you know what, I'm just going to go back to doing my own thing, because the whole time we were trying to find players for this artist that were like, doing what I was doing on the record, and they just weren't cutting it, and I don't know why. I guess what I do is kind of out of the box a little bit, and so we just couldn't find people that could do what I could do, and then so finally I just said, you know what, I'm going to do this myself. I'm just going to go back to doing it myself, and I started a band called the Dead X's, which is it was me and a drummer, and it was a lot of slide guitar. I call it like East Village thrash blues, and we played and toured with Ray Wiley Hubbard. I don't know if you know Ray, but we kind of got into this like Americana country thing, and we were a bit like the punk blues scene that you get in the Midwest. So we played the Deep Blues Festival, which was an amazing festival out in Minneapolis, and just got connected with guys like Left Lane Cruiser and Possessed by Paul James, who's probably one of my favorite American songwriters right now.
That's awesome.
I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's amazing. And Conrad, we're both Florida boys too, by the way. So Conrad and I had the Florida kinship, But yeah, and then so eventually I was doing those shows, and we were doing the two-piece, and it was kind of like it felt like it couldn't grow beyond this kind of punk blues thing, and I really wanted to get back to my kind of funkier, groovier soul music side. And that's why I started Strange Majik, because I wanted to make music again that was like fully produced and at least had at least had bass in it.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. So that's where Strange Majik came about. And I ended up having a radio show in London from 2017 to 2018. And I went on air as Strange Majik, and I kind of just became this character. And I was like, all right,
That's awesome.
that's it, And I had like kind of like you're doing, like a I was podcasting it from here, and then it was coming out in London. And I got obsessed with like Wolfman Jack and a ton of stuff, And so I was like, Strange Majik, yo, what's up, everybody, And they were kind of like, who the hell is this guy,
Who the hell is this guy?
Yeah. So I did
That's
that for a year. That was a lot of fun. And then through that, I was like, okay, I'm just going to call these records Strange Majik. And then, that's how it came about. So that was actually the first Strange Majik was 2015. So we probably started Strange Majik before. But so I've done, how many records? So like 6 albums and 10 releases, something like that for Strange Majik. First record being 2015, which is Lights On. And then now the newest record just came out in end of July. It's called Strange Majik and the Righteous Wrongs. And that's how I think how you and I met, right?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So you've put this all together. You've got a really cool thing here going. What are some of your goals for this music?
Stay alive in 2022. I mean, I think just keep it. It's funny. I'm so busy that I often, I used to kind of make goals for myself and stuff like that. But because I'm so busy now, I find myself just getting wrapped up in the day to day. And we're playing so much. Sometimes we're playing up to 4 shows a week in New York, which is kind of ridiculous. But since we had a pretty heavy lockdown here, and everybody was. Where are you based?
We are in Hutchinson, Kansas, of all places.
Okay, where I've never been. Sounds pretty.
Be glad. So Strange Majik.
City,
Yes.
East Village. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your writing process and everything.
So the writing process is usually, since I live in New York. I mean, let me go back to the plans for a second, then I'll come to that. But so.
Yes.
We're playing a lot, and I'm going to be going down to New Orleans end of September, doing a couple of shows in New Orleans, which I'm working out right now. There's a couple of like cool hotel rooftops that are going to be hosting me, and it's going to be a little. I'm probably going to have like a combo, and then when I come back, I got this old vintage Land Cruiser, and I really love it. So I'm thinking about just rolling down, and I want to do the Mississippi Blues Tour, where you go down and just see where the birthplace, go down to Clarksdale and the whole thing. And I know some people down that way. So I basically just want to go drop the tailgate and play out the back of my truck. And that's kind of like a crazy idea, but that, something else may come along that's a little more together and a little more traditional tour, or something may pop for the band, and we end up doing that. But that's kind of my love idea right now, is that I just want to take that tour and drop the back of the Land Cruiser and just play the guitar and sing for people and just see what they think. So that's the plan coming forward, and having the record out. And then the writing process for me, strangely enough, usually when right now there's no writing, right? Because I finished the record, and I kind of look at it as like, I think the Buddhists say, you've got these ideas are like basically flying through the air, right? And they just come down, and they 2 people will have the same idea at the same time, and New York City and a guy in Tokyo, right? But why is that? Yeah. Because these ideas are just floating around in the air, right? And we're both like, hey, a long time ago, I wrote a song called Black Hole, and I was like, this is so cool. I had this idea of a relationship, like Don't Suck Me In, Black Hole, and it was a great song. And literally, like 2 weeks later, Soundgarden released Black Hole Sun, so like things like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I was like, well, okay, and then it was like, oh yeah, like Black Hole Sun. I was like, no, not really, But so for me, the ideas are out there, you're just kind of waiting for them to come and grab you. But I find that, again, going back to your point about deadlines, if you're saying like, okay, I got to make a record, so one record a year has always been my goal, and that's been pretty consistent for the last 6 years with Strange Majik, which is good, and no small feat. You can imagine how the Beatles and the Stones would put out 2-3 albums a year. It's like crazy. I mean, the productivity of these guys, or even Jimi Hendrix. What he accomplished in 4 years of his life is insane. Um, but when I kind of make that goal for myself, then the melodies kind of start flowing in. So I have an iPhone. I record the melody on the iPhone, and usually the melody comes with kind of a lyric idea.
Okay.
And then when I'm really lucky, they come in dreams. So a lot of times I'll just dream the entire song. It's really weird. There's a song called Tokyo Time Bomb on the 2020 records. 2020. It might be on. I think it's on Channel T. And that whole record, the whole idea, the concept, everything. I didn't even know why I was writing Tokyo Time Bomb, because I was singing it in the dream. And then I Googled it, and I realized that it was a song about like demographics in Tokyo, and how they're not having babies anymore, and how it's a demographic time bomb, because their social security is drying up because there's no young people to support the old people. So and they've shut off their flow of immigrants in Japan.
Yeah.
So
yep.
it's like it's just. You dream these things, and you're like, I don't know what the hell it is. And then, so I ended up writing the song and basing it around that, idea. But you never know where they're going to come. You never know.
Well, tell us about Dose of Love. We're going to play this here in a few moments.
Ooh, yeah. That's a total lockdown tune, man. I mean, that, there's a line, and I've been stripped to the bone. I can't make it on my own. Won't you call me on the phone? I need a dose of love. But just feeling like I live in the East Village. We were getting sirens every 10 minutes coming through. We had people dying like flies here. And, it was being in the harsh reality of COVID. And it was rough, man. A lot of old people went down. I had my friend Adam Schlesinger from Fountains of Wayne died.
Wow.
40 some years
Holy
old.
smokes.
He wrote Stacy's Mom.
Yes.
And that thing you do. He's a super talented songwriter. Sadly, COVID took a lot of people. And it is continuing to take a lot of people. But that's how I felt. And one of my friends is an EMT, and he was one of the guys at I don't know if you can hear that horn, but that's New York City. There's a siren going.
Yes,
yeah.
indeed.
You get a little excitement on the backside. But one of my friends is an EMT in New York, and he got put on the shift. They were the hospitals were overrun, and everybody was freaking out, and so he was brought into the hospital to basically take the body bags and put them in freezer cars. So he said that they were just piling up body bags in like storage closets where he wasn't at NYU. It was like one of the hospitals, probably, let's call it NYU for but just incredible stuff. So that line about, what is it? It's, something about throwing out the bloody uniform. I need a dose of love. It's in the last chorus. That's him. That's about him throwing out the bloody uniform. So
well, we are gonna go to this track. I really appreciate you making time for us today. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you, man. It's really nice to meet you. I hope to make it to Kansas soon.
I
do.
You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. I'd rather come out to New York and see you rather than you come here.
Well, you know what? My great grandparents were in Missouri, so there was probably some kind of Missouri, Kansas, kind of Hatfield and McCoy shit going on.
Yes. Well, we're gonna go to this track. I appreciate you being with us, and we'll be in touch. Thank you, my friend. Love to talk to you again.
Thanks a lot, brother.
Thank you, man. There he goes. That's Strange Majik, and it's Dose of Love, and it's hopefully. I always love all this. You gotta do all the shenanigans when it comes to all this stuff. And Strange Majik coming up here on our big broadcast. Dose of love.